Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel Solo Mode. So trying to catch up here and just get the last two solo modes done. Found out at the end of the last recording it has been nearly 17, I think was what we counted, of the solo modes since we got all the way back up to the one solo mode that just really stands out from the rest by having four uh, sections, three sequels to it. I scrolled up too far there. Which one is it? Um, should be somewhere around here. Enforcers of Justice, Legend of the Star Heroes. Yeah. So all the rest of these have been just single episodes, and typically, most recently, they've been all very short stories, and that a lot of them feel like they are just the intro to potentially something that would get a sequel. But it's taking too long, certainly. Like and I guess that would make me believe that they probably won't get sequels. Inherently, what I assume is happening here is that new expansions are coming out every quarter in in real world time, just every 4 months or so. There is a new expansion for Yu-Gi-Oh, and they're making these solo modes to make some brief explanation as to why the cards exist, that and what the gimmick is for the newest expansion. But then most new expansions just don't matter. That was the problem with Magic the Gathering too, though, is that you get like 4 expansions each year, and a lot of those expansions were only slight tweaks or uh, small modifications, introductions of maybe one or two cards that would matter, um, because of the rotating nature, where only the last four decks were tournament play legal. That would cause a situation uh, when it would rotate over, so that only the first expansion of the year mattered as much, because tournaments only happened at a certain point in the year. And I don't think it actually rolled over as a rotating 4 months as much as it cycled over in a way that only up to four expansions mattered. So if only four expansions mattered in Yu-Gi-Oh, then we would all be playing like Wicked Dragon, S-Force, Alliance for Justice, and Land of Tinyi. Let's go ahead and jump in here instead of just talking. Uh, Yu-Gi-Oh is not like that, though. Every card, for the most part, with the exception of things that have been limited or banned, is completely playable in Yu-Gi-Oh since the beginning. Thus, you have the problem of 10,000 cards being playable in Yu-Gi-Oh, but they're not really viable to play. So the power creep has just gone up and up and up for 25 years, and they've done a decent job where it's not like you started with like one hit point, one defense point creatures at the very beginning of Yu-Gi-Oh, and now we're up to 3,600 hit points, 3,600 defense points for some of the strongest cards. You started really closer to 500 to maybe 1,200, 1,800, maybe a little bit later as far as your monsters. And what has made cards significantly more valuable is that first generation Yu-Gi-Oh cards at best could be polymerized using polymerization to make a stronger character, which is effectively a 3-card combination, whereas now things can banish cards, link summon, XYZ summon, pendulum summon, and you can really get very strong cards on the first or second turn, which you definitely couldn't do at the beginning of Yu-Gi-Oh! Let's hop in here. Obviously, I'm already off track as far as caring about the story. I can tell you just by the visuals of these robotic animal monsters that I'm not going to be particularly interested in it. On a certain planet, several tribes were at war trying to expand their territories and conquer the continent. Now, what really sucks about this is the S-Force solo before this, which really felt like it should have been the first solo storyline that we played of all the solo missions, introduced the idea of moving across different dimensions and in different times. And so by using that concept, then we could get a window and connecting bit of narrative as to why we would now be at this planet. It would almost make sense that the S-Force members were putting in a report, and that's what we're seeing with this text, is a report on another universe, another timeline. However, since none possessed superior military power, the battle between the forces was at a stalemate. The long-lasting war seemed like it would continue for decades or even for all time. However, the battle will come to a conclusion in an unexpected way. The conclusion was a giant meteorite that flew in from outer space. Now, this meteorite seems to be dripping with metal and lava, which, yeah, that looks weird. The organic matter on the meteorite adapted to the new environment and began to multiply and evolve. So, alien goo, or gray goo, now it's like emulating the creatures, or something close to the creatures that were on the planet originally, and acting as an invasive species. Now, are all these monsters going to fight each other, or are they going to unify and fight against the original species on the planet? These invasive, quote, worms, which that's an odd translation for a word like that, but whatever, that drifted through space and devoured stars, have begun their invasion of the planet. Seems like it was intentional to invade. Facing the interstellar invaders, the tribes signed a truce agreement. Each of them went to fight the worms to protect their tribal lands. And so you're going to have crystalline art style heroes with antagonists of being the worms. What's funny about this is the first time in at least 4 or 5 solo stories where they've actually given us a narrative where there is a protagonist and antagonist. And yes, it would be very Route 1 to have every single solo story always do that, but it makes a lot of sense in a card game to say, hey, in this expansion, we're introducing 2 tribes, for lack of a better term, of characters. And those 2 tribes of characters are going to fight against each other, and maybe there would even be some slight synergy with the 2 tribes to make a really good deck that would work in general against any other deck. Or maybe the 2 tribes are so logically different that putting one kind of tribes of cards in your deck nullifies the logic of ever playing the other kind of tribe of card. Now they're going to use the word tribe in a different way. So that was a poor choice of words if I'd been reading here. The Ice Barrier tribe that worshipped the Holy Beast of Ice, I guess that's them, resisted by releasing Bryonic Dragon of the Ice Barrier. The Freezing Gust by the Ice Dragon pushed the worms back. A group of warriors called the Flame Veil controlled fire. They're showing a lot of cards here and not even mentioning 2 of them. Which makes me think that this tuner summoned character is intended to be summoned using these other 2 cards and merged together. The War Chief Flameveil Uraquizas, who incinerated the onrushing hordes was an integral part to the fight. Guardians of the Mist Valley possesses the power of man and bird. We're all over the place as far as different types of creatures now, which, yeah, feels like a stretch that there would be such variety in characters in one expansion. They tricked the invaders, misled by the fog, and prevented them from entering the valley. X-sabers are swordsmen led by the commander Gotem's sword master. Yeah, it definitely feels to me like the person overall in charge of deciding what kind of characters get made in Yu-Gi-Oh! Seems to be a fan very much of like 80s and maybe even 70s anime, growing up in that time, I imagine. Because you get samurais, you get robots, you get the same themes over and over again. It might also just be a case that they are just always trying to appeal to young Japanese boys, and they think that is what still appeals to young Japanese boys, which maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. They are few in number but highly skilled and have slain countless numbers of the cosmic entity. I would say there is probably something, if I was to guess, about Japanese society, particularly business society, where an old man who's the CEO of Konami, for instance, would have his favorite type of characters and creatures, and the underlings under him would just obey his every command, basically making the kids' card game for an old man who runs Konami more than anybody else. And I wouldn't be surprised if there is, just generally speaking, a slightly larger number of old people in Japan, old men in Japan, who feel like kids in 2023 in Japan have the exact same mentality, likes and dislikes, as kids in, say, 1976, and aren't willing to hear any different. And to some level, if we think about video games, Mario games existed in 1983, and Mario games exist now, but Super Mario Bros. 1, or Mario Brothers in the arcades, is drastically different from Mario Odyssey, and Zelda for the NES is drastically different than Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. Anyways, let's finish this story. It really just does always end on a just barely any reason you would end there at all. So consistently, I never know what the gimmick here is. It does seem to me like we may get some more story, but I just don't know what you would do to potentially special summon these cards or use the effects of these cards for the protagonist characters. I assume it's just going to be tuner summoning or special summoning using two cards, one that's a tuner and one that's not. The old tuner non-tuner concept is probably the concept I understand the least of all the added concepts in Yu-Gi-Oh! Spin-off animes. Their identity unknown and impossible to communicate with, the worms swarm in unison like army ants. The tribes fought valiantly, repulsing the worm army, however they couldn't wipe out all of them. The worms that survived the flurry of attacks learned from the stimulus and began to evolve. Well, they're evolving into more alien-like monsters. In this way, new specimens were adapted To every situation were born and began to multiply. They formed another swarm and attacked once again. The invasion was unstoppable. Unable to withstand the invasion of the worms one by one, the tribes were destroyed. So why even tell me about the tribes if they've been destroyed? On the brink of extinction, the representatives of the surviving tribes gathered to have a debate. The invaders are powerful. That was weird, that bottom right one did not evolve. Individual strength is no match against the enemy. Now's the time to join forces and stand together. Thus the 4 prominent tribes of the continent: Ice Barrier, Flame Veil, Ice Fire, Mist Valley, Air, and not water per se. More, I would say this is probably a dark card, or maybe an earth card. I guess maybe it's supposed to be earth. Together to form the Ally of Justice. Not Allies of Justice. Poor translation there. Each tribe began to develop weapons against the worms. The multitude of weapons designed to destroy the enemies were put to the test on the battlefield. Thus, the all-out war against the worms for survival intensified as the days progressed. We still really are just getting very simplistic effects. Just like a watery, foggy effect over a still image. So was it really necessary to have 2 scenarios back to back like that, or were they just trying to make it seem a little bit different, or is there some weird strict limitation in which you can only have 5 pages of dialogue before you abruptly end? So we're playing as Allies of Justice, even though they talked more about the worms. Which, that's fine. The worms being talked about more probably helps characterize them as being the challengers and the threat. With Allies of Justice, you can just generally assume that they're going to be heroes. What makes an Ally of Justice deck unique? It features an abundance of monsters with effects that devastate light monsters. The level 5 and above Ally of Justice monsters, including Synchro monsters, have powerful effects, and their attack and defense are high as well. Be ready to call out high-level monsters when dealing with your opponent's light monsters. Yeah, and again, these pictures don't mean anything to me. What does this mean? You put one face down and then you can destroy a light monster? That's not what that looks like. If anything, it looks like you put this face down, then you flip it, and then it's a different monster, which doesn't make any sense. It's way too one note, though, to make a deck that is just anti-light monsters. Use the effects of Allied Justice monsters to your advantage and win the duel in this turn. They say that always. Unnecessary. Try to summon Ally of Justice Searcher. It says try summoning it instead of just saying summoning it, like it's not going to work. Activate Searcher's effect. Discard Jet Synchron. That lets us change battle positions then. You blocked your opponent's flip effect activation. Send Ally of Justice 1000 Arms from your hand to the graveyard to activate the effect of Jet Synchron. So it's saying activate this by tossing this here, tossing that card. Guess it's supposed to be in the attack position, but it doesn't seem like it matters. Then with the effect of Iron Calls, special summon Ally of Justice 1000 Arms from the graveyard. Okay. Going around in circles, putting things in the graveyard, taking things out of the graveyard. Use Jet Synchron and Allied of Justice 1000 Arms as Synchro materials to Synchro summon Ally of Justice Catastor. So synchro summons are what I'm been talking about as far as tuner, non-tuner monsters. And I'm fairly certain this was came out of the anime spin-off where there was a racing game element while they were playing Yu-Gi-Oh! It seemed really crazy as far as how much it was different from playing regular Yu-Gi-Oh! In that the way it's depicted in the anime is that they're on these motorcycles or cars or whatever, and they're just going faster or slower based on playing some cards, but then they're also just summoning monsters and attacking monsters, and there seemed to be like a lot of rules change. It was far too much of a change, in my opinion, and not even going in a simplified direction. Unlike Yu-Gi-Oh! Rush, which does also drastically change the idea of how Yu-Gi-Oh! Is played. But at least in Yu-Gi-Oh! Rush, they're moving it so it's a very fast game and a very simple game for new players. Proceed to the battle phase and use Ally of Justice Catastor to attack. And I would say, I think you really needed a different kind of play mat and play fields to play the Yu-Gi-Oh! Synchro Summon spin-off game, the way it was shown in the anime at least, where if you wanted to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Rush, the rules would be different, but you could do it on the same play fields, and the rules would be fairly simple. If it battles something that's not dark, its effect activates and destroys the opponent's monster at the start of the battle phase. So basically, if you attack here, it destroys that. It's a useful effect that can counter monsters with high attack, but if the effect destroys the opponent's monsters, you can't inflict battle damage. Attack your opponent's life points directly with the other character. Interesting that he activated something there when it just didn't matter. That's a bad way to script things. I have to say though, I think these cards are pretty much dead in the water at this point. I just don't see a way that playing a random generic deck you would be able to win with this idea. And Synchro Summon as a concept only is powerful until you have other types of summoning. If Synchro Summon came directly after Polymerization and everything else you had to pull out of the extra deck was from using the Polymerization spell card, then Synchro Summon's a better idea that way. But once you introduce XYZ summoning, once you introduce Link summoning, and so many other things that are commonplace these days, Synchro Summon just doesn't hold up. Wow, that was literally it. I'm just sitting here expecting something else to happen so I can do another action. And yeah, no such luck. All I could do here was put this in defense mode. I should have put it in. Let's see if we can do anything on the second phase of this actual gameplay. Okay. I can activate this, and I can special summon this. Is the time to use this, though? Wow, a lot of these spells are actually working. So what's the next move? Probably the next move would be to do this. What happened there? I guess maybe this sent something back? Okay. Well, it feels like that's a good start. The only real problem here is we have only one card, so if they could clear the field, I would struggle to summon this card and struggle to be able to do anything else. I can't special summon again because I've already special summoned once this turn. Yeah, and it definitely just feels like we're going to do the same old up here, where let's just discard that. I'm not even seemingly going to be able to pull out any synchro summon characters. 1900 damage now, or replace this in tribute. I guess we do this. Now I'm completely out of cards. But didn't matter. If anything, that battle is just kind of a great example of how each of these duels should be fairly scripted. At least at the sense of controlling what cards you get, in what order your deck is in, and controlling generally what your opponent draws and plays. I don't want the game to have each duel walk me through each solution and just tell me exactly what to do, but I would appreciate if there was a scenario there that was controlled where I would actually see the deck used to its full potential. I guess pause now if you want to read this. Maybe we'll get a bit more challenge on the second duel. There's a real imbalance in these episodes too, in that they probably would be about 30 minutes if it weren't for the fact that dueling in general in Yu-Gi-Oh! Takes so long. Keep an eye on the numbers to show just the statistics as far as how many winning decks play this card. Okay. Guess we start with this one. Yep, this card not being used much. We didn't get two heads, and that's what we were looking for. Which I guess means I can't do anything. And he's just gonna kill my guy. That lets me special summon this now. Then this looks like a deck that is completely built around tossing coins. So, do this, and do this. Go ahead and play a field spell. Go ahead and summon this. Let's get rid of uncertainty, if we can. $1,700 here, or $2,500 here. So we're gonna do Monster Reborn. Should we do Monster Reborn now, though? Yeah, we'll just end there. Yeah. Play a little conservatively. Don't want to get tricked and end up losing some characters. Now that there are 2 light monsters in the graveyard, or 1 light monster in the graveyard, I can do that card. Yeah, and I've pretty much won now. Activate this, see what happens. Summon this here. Activate this. Then we are just looking for the thing with the most attack, which is almost certainly that, so I won't look any further. Okay. And we win. I guess at some level, yes, a year or 2 into playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel and coming back to playing Yu-Gi-Oh! After many years of not playing it, I do understand, for the most part, all these concepts. And so if you were a player who literally had never played Yu-Gi-Oh! Before, maybe the solo mode makes some sense here. But then why tie that to rewards? Why not just let me skip it and say, hey, I already understand this stuff. I don't want to have to crawl through what is kind of elementary level education. And yeah, there are probably several things I don't understand, but it's not like these solo modes are getting into the weeds with concepts either. I would much prefer a history lesson around synchro summoning cards and what were the best synchro summoning cards and what are synchro summon cards that just don't matter anymore. Rose token. So, wait a minute. Plant, dark level 2, on the opponent's field. This attack loss remains even if the card leaves the field. You can target one monster in your grave with attack equal to the total attack of all plant monsters and field destroy this card. As many plant monsters to summon that. We don't have anything like that. Have its attack then. The control of the monster special summons one rose token to their opponent's field. I don't see how that synergizes with this at all. So it really feels like this Black Garden field spell is something I just shouldn't have played. He'll summon something here. He'll give me a rose token. He'll summon a rose token, I guess, for me. But this isn't a rose token. This is a vassal token. Seems like you're really going back and forth with this. You can go and special summon this. Another rose token. Then we can go ahead and tribute summon, I guess, this. But I don't get it. I really don't get it. Light monster. Dark monster, light monster. Dark monster, dark monster. So we'd want to attack with this. To destroy that. Then you basically have no choice. You just do this. And then you do this. Put that in defensive position, maybe. Then maybe we can now summon something. All face-up monsters this card points to become the type. That type until the end. All face-up monsters that points to become that attribute until the end. It's like you're trying to change them all to be light characters. But I really don't get it. What's the point of turning something into a light character or a plant type? Other than to maybe special summon this when the field spell isn't enabled. I'm getting outplayed quite a bit here. What would make some sense is to set this so it's face down, so then you're not activating that ability. Then summon this. Discard one card from your hand to return a trap or spell card from the field equal to the number of face-up tuner monsters. Or special summon something big. Let's special summon this. Samurai Destroyer. Needed all three of those. Synchro summoned not using polymerization, but still using stars. XYZ summoning not using really stars or a specific number of characters, so XYZ might be a little too powerful, and then pendulum summoning based on the levels of the pendulum monsters in the left and right. And link summoning requiring a certain number of characters, which there's a big jump there where characters being labeled and categorized based on the number of stars has been the standard, and then when you get to link summoning, it really doesn't matter at that point what the number of stars exist. Yeah, it feels like if they were really going to add yet another expansion to Yu-Gi-Oh!, there's a decent chance it would just break Yu-Gi-Oh! Even more than it's already broken with just power creep. But I don't know how you would really even engage with adding a new concept to Yu-Gi-Oh! As it is, when right now they're trying to push Yu-Gi-Oh! Rush. Rush would have to fail pretty miserably and they'd have to abandon it in favor of just adding a new expansion to Yu-Gi-Oh! And focusing on that. I imagine they probably will add a new expansion to Yu-Gi-Oh! And just maintain support for it forever. This is not doing anything for me. The smarter move, in my opinion, would be for them to make Yu-Gi-Oh! Rush as a middle step that nobody likes. Basically the new Coca-Cola equivalent. Although I'm not sure that's really what's going to happen in the long run. But then if you made the new Coke, you could then come back and say, hey, we're going to reboot Yu-Gi-Oh! And we're going to make Yu-Gi-Oh! Version 2.0, as it were. We're going to make all new cards that look better and simplify the rules down. I kind of love how crazy Yu-Gi-Oh! Is. It is by far the craziest of the crazy, but there is also still some work here. So I guess the idea may have been you were going to like use the plants and use that field spell to summon plants. So I could say, click this and have made this a plant using that. And then I could have activated that spell. I really couldn't have done it that way, but so this one can attack all light cards. Which really is only going to help me as far as destroying those two cards. So I've lost. Let's see if anything crazy happens, but overall I think this will be it. So let's try that again. You do have this problem, certainly with Yu-Gi-Oh! In that, personally, I don't want to play that much Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm not doing it other than the fact that YouTube wants me to live stream, so I play maybe an hour of Yu-Gi-Oh! Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But that's kind of it. An hour and a half. After that, I'm not looking to spend extra time, so because I'm not looking to spend extra time to play, I would just never have the extra time to learn a lot of these cards. So even if there was a new interesting gimmick, I would be definitely behind the curve as far as learning it and being able to play it, even if I did have the cards. What else we can summon? Which one has the most attack? I guess this one does. Do we want to special summon something? Guess not. I feel like I did learn something in the last game, though. Whereas this time, when we get lucky and win, I probably won't learn anything. This would be where it would be fairly helpful too, to have an enemy potentially with just infinite health and goals to say summon 20 characters, activate 5 spells, just a whole checklist that would happen as you go through a deck and do massive amounts of damage. And then you could even have like a score attack element in this game where you're just trying to see how much damage could you possibly accrue. And I guess you just do that. I think that's all that needs to happen. Didn't even need to do that much. Perfect example there. First game, challenging, makes me play a lot of cards, makes me think about the cards, and makes me learn something. Second game, got lucky, won just because the opponent didn't play any cards at all. Night and day difference. Did not learn, obviously, anything from that second battle, so had that been the first battle, it wouldn't have been a good educational experience and a good solo experience in general. Let's, I guess, wrap up the story. This is going to be, I guess, a shorter episode. There's no reason to drag it out. And it's not like I have the most in-depth criticism to say about Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel as an application. They've made improvements, certainly, but not really enough for the 2 years it's been out, and they haven't knocked my socks off as far as adding cards or adding gameplay modes. It is still pathetically terrible as far as just, can you go to a website and copy into the clipboard a deck and then paste the deck into Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, which the answer to that is not really yes. You have to instead connect the website to your account on a different Konami Yu-Gi-Oh! Database, card database that's older, and then import it from there and just go through a middleman, 2 or 3 middlemen, really. Deck building otherwise, and the game has not really been improved in 2 years at all. Each tribe developed their own ally of justice weapons and sent them off to war. The weapons initially performed as expected, however, after a certain period of time they become ineffective. This is all very metallic looking. Why? This was because the worms even adapt to those weapons. Worms evolved to withstand extreme temperatures, and upon exposure to the ice barrier's freezing gust, the ally of Justice Unknown Crusher, and Flamewell's Flames, the ally of Justice Rudra, ally of Justice Clausolus, created by the Mist Valley, specialized in ambush from the skies. However, the invaders acquired the ability to camouflage, deceiving the Mist Valley weapons. So are these individual characters or just weapons? I guess it doesn't really matter. I guess they're probably just weapons, robots. Even the slashes of Ally of Justice Thousand Arms developed by X-Saber were counteracted. You have a jelly triangle cube here. Species with impenetrable hardened skin, and ones that could divide and regenerate, it appeared. The Alliance initially pledged allegiance to overcome the existential crisis together. This isn't really how evolution would work unless it's a hive mind of some sort. If somebody was killed or hurt severely by a weapon, they're not going to be able to pass on genetic information or knowledge in some other way to evolve a defense against it. Somebody would have to randomly mutate something that was evolutionary beneficial, like hardened skinned, and then survive a battle against sharp blades to live long enough to pass on genetic information one way or the other. At least that's how real evolution works, versus what seems to be a very guided evolution in the case of these worms. However, the original dispute was unresolved, and differences of opinion and disorganization among the tribes had flared up once again. If this continues, they are sure to lose. To counteract the invaders, they had to truly unite. Otherwise, what is the alliance for? The four tribes put aside their past ruts and decided to truly cooperate with each other. So here's the original four tribe card characters. And so the engineers of each tribe analyzed the pros and cons of their weapons as well as the worm's characteristics. They needed offensive and suppressive power in close combat, defensive capabilities in brawls, and maneuverability in long range against long range targets, and mass production through standardization. Combining the best of their technologies was an amazing weapon was born equipped with. Alright, let me take a moment here and go. This dangerously feels like this might be an allegory of either the Allies or the Axis powers of World War II. Mass production through standardized production of steel to make planes and tanks, per se. And then four tribes potentially coming together. Yeah. That you could potentially have some of that happening too, with although that would be a very weird story to say, certainly, since Japan was part of the Axis powers and the United States, late to the game, was part of the Allies, and Europe and UK was part of the Allies. And I would say most steel production and standardization would have been coming from the Allies' mass production, although there might very well have been a lot of standardization coming out of Nazi Germany and Japan too. it was a time certainly of mass modernization as to how weapons were made. My concern here certainly is the next sentence is, an amazing weapon was born, the atomic bomb. Everything necessary, ally of justice, Cataster. Well, I guess I really shouldn't have been that afraid, because instead we have this spider leg looking creature that really feels like it could very well be a motorcycle, where this was just a wheel under it, or maybe not, maybe a unicycle even. As a result of their efforts, a weapon that was a masterpiece never seen before was complete. As soon as its performance and reliability were proven, mass production began. This will greatly help the tribes on the front lines. The warm invasion intensified with each passing day. Battles spread across the continent. It was a battle with no end in sight, however. The unity of the Ally of Justice was becoming a symbol of great hope for the tribes of this on the planet. Again, that's just where they're going to end the story. Just on kind of a cliffhanger. And a gate unlocks, which I assume means a card pack is found. And that's all gates unlocking seem to really mean. So how many of these cards, let's just see, do I have? Not really a lot. So this probably would be a decent candidate to open 10 packs on, even though I really don't have a lot of extra gems. But we never in any of those 3 battles really engaged with these ultra rare synchro summon monsters. Whereas if you had a single player element where you had to summon those characters before you could win, and that would be helpful to at least synchro summon one character, if not all 4 of them. Most of these we just didn't see. And it's not like these are particularly good cards, but then there is also the truth of the matter is that I probably have most of the good cards that I would ever get opening packs. It's not like there is a specific pack that I could name that would give me really, really good cards. The best I could say is to buy like the newest packs, or the packs that you have the least number of cards in the first place. But even when Yu-Gi-Oh! Does cycle out a new card pack, or bring in a new card pack, selection packs versus secret packs, it's not like those feel like good cards or new cards. It seems like they're just kind of far behind. Right, so let's look at the shop. Yes, there is one more solo thing, so I'm going to take a risk. So they most recently introduced this secret pack for comparison, and maybe these cards are somewhat newer, but I don't think any of them are really playable in ranked play in meta. None of these cards look familiar to me at all, and I don't think Yu-Gi-Oh! Is really a game that's so slow to adapt as far as the player base that if these were good cards, if there was a good strategy around this, something like that wouldn't have already been discovered and played by many players. At a certain level, I bet with the World Championships going on right now that maybe some new strategy and new deck will come out from tournament professional players. This other pack here is also the newest secret pack to be released, and they're now being featured. But again, I don't see people actually playing these cards. And these new cards are fairly weird. And you have robot monks showing up. And then you have punk cards. So it'll be interesting in particular to see how long it takes the solo missions to catch up that we would see a punk card. I think we've already seen a solo mission around robots made out of wood in feudal Japanese times. So this expansion here, talking about the robots, the wooden robots, may be a sequel, or may indicate a sequel solo mode would be made around that. The other most recent thing was a secret pack. Let's see. Trap of the Wicked Castle. This one felt like it was cards that potentially would be played in the future on ranked play, but even at that I haven't seen people really embrace it. Plus, Trap on the Wicked Castle oddly is centered around doing a strategy that really only made sense and playing cards that only really made sense at the very, very beginning of Yu-Gi-Oh! These Spirit Message final cards, which really made this expansion feel very much like a gimmick, in that 4 of your 40 cards are giving you really old cards with finale. This is a really old card. This is a really old card. This is a really old card. So, kind of hard to justify spending the extra money. It's also worth pointing out that when you open secret packs, only 4 of the 8 cards you get are actually from the featured card set. Whereas if you buy normal packs, 8 of the cards, these normal packs too, not really giving you any cards I'm seeing anybody playing. I'm not really seeing a lot of changing happening in ranked play much at all anyways. But yeah, 85 cards, and you get 8 out of 8 per pack out of normal packs. So by far you'd want to get normal packs. You probably don't want to get master packs, because there's 7,520 cards in these master pack duels, and pretty much all these cards are not really playable. So where were we as far as secret packs? And then legacy packs are basically the worst, and you can't even buy them with anything other than legacy tickets. I wish they'd get rid of the time mechanism on these secret packs and you would just unlock them permanently. So, double check here. I do want to open a 10 pack. So I'm going to spend 1,000 gems and hope I get an ultra rare. If I don't get an ultra rare, then I have to spend another 1,000 gems, and then I'd be guaranteed an ultra rare. There's perhaps an argument if I was rolling in more gems, I would just open 20 packs anyways. But you definitely start to see fairly diminished returns after 20, 30 packs being open. Remember, these are the featured cards. These are just random Master Duel and Legacy cards. So, yes, this being new is nice, but it's not really that nice. You want to see all the new cards and all the ultra rares and super rares on the right side, not the left. The little jiggle means you're going to get something nicer, and then the spin means you're getting a better visual version of the cards, but what does that really matter? And then the keys unlock other secret packs, so even when you start opening secret packs, then you're just tempted to open more secret packs forever and forever and ever, potentially spending tons of real world money. And you could, if you had infinite money, totally pay to win in this game. There's nothing stopping you. You could have every single card, you could build every single deck, and then it would just fall on the player to actually be able to play the decks correctly, and then they would win more often than not and make it up in ranked play. You usually only get a key if you are getting a super rare or an ultra rare card. I don't think you get keys from normals or rares, but you consistently get a key when you get a super rare or ultra rare. But there aren't that many secret packs at this point, 2 years into collecting the cards. So even if I do unlock 6 more secret packs, they're all going to be secret packs I've already seen and already opened a lot of cards for. And it's just becoming more of a hassle to try and evaluate whether you have enough cards from that one secret pack that, or you don't, and whether it's worth 1,000 gems to open 10 packs. It's not worth opening individual packs of 100. You need to always do it in bundles of 10. One thing I will say nice about Yu-Gi-Oh! Is that you really can't grind to an insane level. It might be nice if you could grind a little bit to earn more gems, but if instead of playing for 3 to 6 hours a week, I was playing 40 hours a week, then it really wouldn't change too much. I'd get more legacy packs, and that's about it. I'd have more gems, but not by much, because almost all your gems are coming from doing daily quests, and once you've done the daily quest, there's nothing more to do. We have a massive amount of this card, 4 copies. Does that mean I have 4, 8, 12, 16 copies, or does that mean I have 4 copies? No, I think I literally got 16 copies of this card. Weird. 4 copies of the shiny version, 12 copies of the non-shiny versions. That seems like almost a glitch in what's being depicted here. Yeah. Oh, that's wild. Meanwhile, we got this, 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 and this. So let's go back to the featured cards and see how many we have now. We didn't get any of the ultra rares of the 4 that exist. We do have a decent number of super rares, and we're missing like 1 normal here. You can see on the normals there's a decent number of cards that have like only 1 copy, where you'd want to try to get up to 3. So I could see opening another 10 pack, but I'm not going to, particularly since these aren't important cards. And then we unlocked first heroes, which I'll just quickly show. Not quite enough of a candidate. Yeah, I'm not to the point where I think I'd likely get a bunch of super rares for this. And that's pretty much how it's going to go for all of them. This is pretty much not a candidate, even though there's some super rares here. No, I could see myself opening that too with infinite gems. But definitely it would be diminished returns over and over again, as far as potentially opening new secret packs to get just 1 or 2 ultra rares, or your 3rd copy of an ultra rare. And after that point, if you have all the cards available in secret packs, which probably be all the cards in the game, opening secret packs only makes sense if you're just trying to get more crafting points. This again might be a decent candidate. There definitely are some gaps with the normal cards. And I actually don't really recognize this. I'll say the power and technical and hold the line labels are absolutely useless to me. They don't mean anything at all. I don't feel like there really is a power or technical or hold the line style of deck, as it were. I think good decks have to engage with all of that. Since I did open the card packs though, I can come over and edit any random deck, and we can dismantle any extra cards. But you will see that that is not a lot of extra cards. So it dismantles 4 more of your cards into 3 cards. 3 of each of the following cards will remain: basic non-foil, finish, glossy finish, and royal finish. Which, wow, that's a terrible, terrible system to have. So what that effectively means is that a glossy finish version of some cards has to have 3 copies, and then the non-glossy version of cards have to have 3 copies, even though you can only have 3 versions, 3 copies of a card of any version. That's silly. And what that probably means is that while we still have a lot of cards like this that just can't be dismantled at all, there is a secondary list that I'd have to struggle to try to figure out how I'd even see it, as far as trying to figure out all my glossy finish and all my royal finish cards. Yeah, this Pot of Trick. Let me try that and see if we can highlight. Nope, that didn't work. Try it again. Okay, that worked. So, since this is a normal card, I don't think normal cards can have higher than just a shiny edge glossy finish. But I have 3 copies that cannot be dismantled of that, and I have 3 copies that cannot be dismantled of that. Where in a game that has 10,000 cards to deal with, you would think you would just be able to select something over here to say, show me the glossy finish always, because the glossy finish is actually just a skin for all the cards I own, not replicating what the real world example would be, where you actually would have glossy finish versions and non-glossy finish versions. But the fact that it's doubling up, or if not tripling up in some cases, with different versions, basic, non-foil, glossy, and then royal finish for super rares and ultra rares, I believe. But maybe you can get glossy finish on super rares and ultra rares also? I'm not even sure. You're doubling or tripling up the number of cards in this list just by having that system. Anyways, I guess I'm getting off topic here. So, one more single solo story to do in this run, and then we'll be caught up. And then, yeah, I wanted to see if I could find the story with the robot. Yeah, I think this is it. With the robot. Yeah, this is it. Robot in feudal Japanese times. Let's see if we can find a reward. A highlight, yeah. So, if we just got a new selection pack or secret pack around robots in wooden robots in shinobi times, then that potentially means we might be due for a sequel. Yeah, here you can see robots all over the place. To study in the origins of Karakuri, which would be here, which is actually before Legends of the Star Heroes, which got that massive story. And that is way, way far away from these stories. So, alright, well, that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to support me further, there's a link down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.